Thanks everyone for joining another week. We weren't here last week, so I was out of town. I just wanted to bring up this meeting that it was kind of a quick meeting we've set up now, but it's relating long COVID and the potential of cancer connection between long COVID. A few meetings ago, I think I mentioned this article by Kasha Patel. He's an MD. He's in charge of these few nonprofits. He used to be a president and a CEO of some hospitals in the past, but now he's running these couple of nonprofits related to cancer, patient advocacy groups, and other cancer related groups. And he started noticing in the clinic around the world, not just US, India and other places, that there's these higher rates of cancer occurring the past year that shouldn't be occurring pre-pandemic. So when I read his article, I reached out to him and said, well, we have potential links. And initially from our omics data, of course, when you got the omics acute case, it's just that one time point. And it could very well not be related to cancer, but we see signals keep popping up. So he saw that data and he has all this endpoint data. So he thought it's very compelling and we should have a meeting, like a short one day and a pre-meeting, informal meeting. So I invited some people like Doug and Chris and Rob to join us, and he's actually getting a lot of nice, as you can see here in this list here. He has some people from biotech coming. He's actually confirmed a state senator from Carolina is showing up, and a few other governmental and health officials are coming to this. And now he said also people can attend online if they're interested. So if you are interested to be there, if you're in the Charlotte area, you want to be in person, you're more than welcome to join. Or if you have travel funds of your own and you want to show up, that's fine. But if you want to join online, you could contact also Delaney, and she could give you all the details. And I'll share these slides. So we're going to be presenting data related with this topic, and then these are some other people who are presenting, and there's some more people that we'll be adding as we go. So if you're interested, this was sort of put together in the last month and a half, really quickly. But no, it's going to be, I think, interesting. The point of this meeting is just to bring awareness to the topic and hopefully potentially get some funds to research it and just find if there's a link either way, So I think it's an important topic to study. If you find there's no link between cancer and long COVID, that'd be great. But if we do find a link, we want to get ahead of it before it turns out to be too late. So I guess this relates to our in-person meeting too, that maybe this could be our in-person meeting that people want to attend now. All right, so no new publications yet from the group. There's a few papers under review, I know. Hopefully this mitochondrial paper, which is the bane of our existence, will hopefully be accepted soon. It's the final stages. Okay. And just talking about papers, people are interested. I've been mentioning this every time we meet. Al Selenis has a few case reports we're working on related to these interesting long COVID cases. So if people want to join that group, he has some data that patients have consented to share the data for these case reports. So it'll be the more the merrier if people want to help. Okay, let's get into the COVID news and updates. This Nature commentary or editorial or news feature, I should say, came out was it a couple of days ago, 2 days ago. And it was talking about, I know we've heard different conflicting stories in the past couple of years about reinfections and being dangerous, or are they reducing your chance for severity and stuff. So this is a nice kind of summary article talking about that. And one statistic I didn't really realize was this, saying that it's 5 to 10% of people are reporting reinfections. I thought it was higher, but I guess this is the references they have here. But beside that point, I guess it's a lot lower than I was thinking. So for the numbers, but the reinfections, a lot of the data that's coming in so far has been showing that reinfections have been milder or less severe, or not as important, not as damaging to the system as these studies. But there's been conflicting reports too from this big Veterans Affairs paper that I think we went over a few meetings ago, that talks about that if you're mildly infected and then get reinfected, potentially this could be causing your worse side effects. But there was some caveats with this study, mainly like it was an older white men population because of the Veteran Affairs population they're looking at cohort. And there's some other parts of that where they weren't looking at previously how bad they were, and the previous symptoms. So kind of like just looking at a compounding effect. There's a nice study from the NC3 group, which I'm sure some people here might have been part of, that they looked at a large population from their U.S. clinical information they have, and they saw that that the second severe infection was much more common. A severe second infection was much more common in people who had a severe first infection in this. And there's a lot more to the study than that, but that's some of the highlights. That if you had a severe infection the first time, you're going to get a severe one the next time. But the mild ones were, I don't think, as bad. So this is interesting. People
Did any of those
go ahead,
studies evaluate the impacts of co-infection on, or the interactions of co-infection with reinfection?
You mean co-infection with other viruses, or?
Yeah, well, exactly. Other pathogens. Actually, it wouldn't have to even be viruses. It could be protozoan or bacterial pathogens as well. But
I haven't seen any. I mean, I know people have looked at stuff, and there was one paper from Chris Mason's group that so many people were part of that actually saw like early on, way back in 2020 or 2021. Was looking at the co-infection. There was some co-infection part in that, but I haven't seen like reinfection and co-infection papers. I don't know if others have. They could comment if they did. I mean, it's an interesting question. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I know there's some work with toxoplasm, for example, and other pathogens, but none of them evaluate reinfection, to my knowledge. So
right. It's an interesting question to tackle, but I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I'm a co-author on a co-infection paper for NIH, but it doesn't cover reinfection.
Okay, yeah. Maybe it's an avenue someone could tackle. Maybe NC3 might be able to have data there. Maybe that could potentially look into these things because they have so much data, clinical data there, that you might be able to find some correlations there. I know people are interested or have heard about the new variant, the XBB.1.16 that's popped up in India in the last month. This is just an article going about that. Just to this morning or yesterday, the WHO official announced that that people should be concerned, as most of us know here should be, but should be concerned about it in the case that it seems to be causing a new wave, as you might see any of these new variants popping up. But what's positive, I guess, if there's anything positive in new variants popping up, is that what they've seen in India, and what I discussed a few meetings ago, they don't see like any increase of severity or hospitalizations because of it. It's just the new variant is being transmitted more, so then you can get more cases, and then it's going to go back down. But the severity seems to be the same as the previous variant so far. That's what so far is being reported from what I've seen. And related to that, there is sort of a new symptom. I think I mentioned a few meetings ago they see in India, and this is just another article talking about that. Where here's the CBS one on the left. That there's the few meetings ago I said there was conjunctivitis or pink eye in kids, but now they're seeing it happen in adults too. So that's the newer symptom. I mean, the conjunctivitis had been previously seen in older variants, but it wasn't very common. Now they're seeing it to be one of the common symptoms that pop up when you get this XBB.1.16. So I guess keep an eye on that. And as this MD or clinician points out from Stanford, or I think she's from Stanford, she says it could be also maybe due to the season when there's a lot of allergies too. Maybe it's a combination of that. We just don't know. I usually don't talk about politics, but this one here is annoying enough that I thought I'd bring up people just really briefly interested. If they want to read about it, people know about Florida and their continuous misinformation that comes out of there with COVID and all the details. And so this was a nice uncovering from Politico. They talked about the Florida Surgeon General, where he was claiming the vaccine increases health risks and it's bad for you and so on. They actually point out that he kind of altered the findings before he brought it out, saying what he was saying. So people want to read about that, they can hear. But that's all I'm going to say about that topic, which is not surprising based on what we've seen come out of what this person talks about and the kind of non-factual COVID topics he says. So let's go through some long COVID news. Going to my favorite COVID blog from Eric Topol. He has a couple of new blogs there that he talks about. I'm sure people are familiar with that big review, comprehensive review he put out in the beginning of the year, along with, I think, Hannah Davis was the first author, and a few other authors. But he put out a topic about from long COVID that new diabetes cases will most likely be popping up. This might be of interest to the inflammation group because his hypothesis and some of the data from other papers reporting is this little schematic here on the bottom of the kind of the summary, talking about how increased innate immune pathway responses, interferon-related pathways, and this downregulation of this leptin and adiponectin pathways, like dealing with the adipose tissues, could be the reason why, with long COVID, you might get a lot more cases of diabetes or onset of diabetes happening in people which they shouldn't be before they had COVID. So this is interesting little blog. Talks about, some of the papers and evidence that might be pointing to this summary figure here. And then, just this little closing paragraph here, I thought was nice, saying that, long COVID, in that review again, he talked about long COVID earlier this year. They emphasized the diabetes as one of the sequela. And, it's important to note that, the long COVID, as we know, and organs such as brain, kidney, and the heart are often associated, but, this is kind of a systemic impact, and long COVID can be treated this way.
Option, very quick question from Steve. Unlike the controversies we've seen in some papers on lots of different organs, whether there truly is replicating virus or not, I can't see, they have an electron micrograph here. It looks like they do pretty well see viral particles here from your look at it.
Yeah, so they're the same to viral particles. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, they don't talk. He doesn't talk about replicating. So it's that same old argument. Like, is it replicating?
But it says SARS-CoV-2 infects and replicates in cells of the human endocrine at the top. So he says replicates there.
Well, that's during the acute phase. The long COVID.
Right. No, I meant the acute phase. Even.
Okay. Yeah. The acute phase. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the acute phase. Yeah, the long COVID case. I mean, he talks about those papers that say the particles are in there, but replicating doesn't mention. But yeah, this is the acute. This is a paper looking at the acute phase. And these.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there any other comments or discussion around this?
I'm just always intrigued that they talk about each of these clinical symptoms in isolation, and then he lists the heart, kidney, and brain as a separate statement, as if diabetes is somehow independent of all the other sequelae, whereas it's much more logical that there's a systemic effect that's affecting all those organs. But that's just my view.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they often look at it. An observation is very true, and I think that's what's missing with a lot of the people researching. They don't consider us as a whole organism.
Well, but the next sentence is, if you look at the last sentence of the paragraph, I think the point he's trying to make is that you might have a patient where the only symptom of long COVID is diabetes, is new onset diabetes.
Right.
And other symptoms you might have expected to see are not present. That doesn't mean you should exclude long COVID as a possible explanation for where that diabetes came from.
Right. That's the summary. Yeah, exactly. This might be of interest to people in the inflammation group, immune group, but they're talking. There's another blog that came out this week. He was talking about the heightened risk of autoimmune disease, and he goes over some of the recent papers and other papers that are there. And this is some data from the U.S., like looking at increased cases of different autoimmune related factors like arthritis and things like that, inflammatory thing. This is a German study that actually showed that the autoimmune diseases for long COVID was more prominent for outpatient versus inpatient. So when you had mild cases, that's what this study that he was referencing was showing that, as you can see here from this plot. It was interesting from the same German study. They looked at, again, the severity of COVID-19 was operationalized as only outpatient outcare using hospitalization. Anyway, the severity here was basically related more for outpatient for this autoimmune. And then he summarizing about the autoantibody story related to all these CCL, all these inflammatory kind of chemokines that I think some of these are within our list that we have for our inflammation paper that we're looking at. And these could be potentially leading, the increases of these during the acute phase could be keep being activated during long COVID and potentially, instigating this autoimmune related impact in long COVID. And so his summary, why these are important, basically, his basic summary is we don't really understand it in a nutshell, but we see these events happening, could be related to this. And of course, this is an important topic that people should pay attention to because it could have downstream consequences to different health issues in the future. So people understood that he has some references, throughout here to these studies to look at that. He doesn't talk about mitochondria, so there's not much mitochondria talk. I don't think that's not too surprised to maybe some people here.
Oh, well.
But it's probably related, right? This might be upstream of all this, I would imagine. And this is a newer paper that just came out. Again, I guess this is related with inflammation. So a lot of information related for the inflammation group. It's a review and a kind of a meta study of analysis of multiple different. These are some of the studies they looked at, and this is this one figure. They have multiple figures looking at a lot of different studies from different people around, that's come out the past few years. And they're looking at increased IL-6 as a potential long COVID, maybe biomarker in a sense, or maybe something that people could look at, which is not so surprising. IL-6 people have looked at, but the persistence of it, they're claiming, is there based on all these studies. But that's in a nutshell what they're claiming. And basically, they did some comprehensive meta-analysis from lots of different, I forget how many different studies they looked at here. 22 published studies, here it is. They looked at. But they only focused on IL-6. So they unfortunately left out other markers, which maybe is a limitation of this study. I guess that's it for some of the news I've seen. I'm probably missing some papers, but past couple of weeks, I haven't seen too many other papers pop up on my radar. I'm sure there's other papers I've missed. But yeah, so the variance in the United States currently is still XBB.1.5 is dominant, but as we see, the 1.16 and the 1.9, which was the one that popped up in Singapore, are starting to creep up to the 6% level in the U.S. The wastewater data is again showing overall nationally a decline in the U.S. I think this is sort of the case around most of the world. But there are regions like where I live, you see this little spike coming back up, unfortunately. But we'll see if this, as you see these bumps happen here and there, but we'll see if that's just a small bump and it goes back down in the weeks to come. But nationally overall, even when you look at different regions, it's all still in a decline, which is it's good to see. And again, the variants are not dominantly as XBB.1.5, but as I said, XBB.1.16 is 6 to 13%. This is the overall map distribution, but I just thought